What goes up must come down. That's the mantra for most space missions, but it seems Starliner is breaking the mold. Yes, the return date for this spacecraft continues to be delayed. Last month, many were frustrated and disappointed at the launch of Starliner CFT-1. Disappointed as the launch of Starliner CFT-1 faced continuous delays. 5 delays, including 3 due to helium leaks, are unacceptable for a crewed spacecraft. Despite these issues, NASA and Boeing pushed forward with the mission, and now they're facing the consequences. In the previous episode, I asked if Starliner could return on June 22nd. Most of you were correct in saying it couldn't. According to NASA's recent update, Starliner's return schedule has been changed. The notice states, teams from NASA and Boeing are now targeting no earlier than 10:10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, Tuesday, June 25th, for the undocking of the Starliner spacecraft from the International Space Station. Thus, the schedule has been delayed an additional 3 days compared to the previous plan. NASA explained, mission teams supporting NASA's Boeing crew flight test continue to review Starliner's data from the completed test objectives. Steve Stitch, manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, added,
"We want to give our teams a little bit more time to look at the data, do some analysis, and make sure we're really ready to come home."
Mark Nappy, vice president of Boeing's Commercial Crew Program, clarified,
I would add, Steve, that we fully intend to eliminate these, call them nuisances for the flight.
Once again, we see them struggling with the helium leak problem and propulsion issues. Within a month, Starliner leaked helium 5 times, from before launch to after it was docked on the ISS. During the approach to the ISS, 5 of the 28 thrusters also encountered problems. These issues led to the return schedule being delayed a second time from the 18th to the 22nd, and now to the 25th. On June 15th, 2 astronauts conducted spacecraft tests in orbit. Stitch stated,
"Certainly Saturday was a big day of understanding the helium leaks have gone down and also understanding that the thrusters have recovered and that we can count on those thrusters for the remainder of the flight."
Even though that statement sounded positive, the delay made me feel like everything was quite serious. If everything was really as smooth as they claimed, the work would have been completed early instead of the constant delays. Regarding the schedule since Starliner arrived at the ISS, this is the 3rd delay in its attempt to bring 2 astronauts back to Earth. The first postponement was because NASA proposed for 2 astronauts to stay at the ISS until June 18th to support a spacewalk mission. However, this mission was canceled due to problems related to the spacesuit. On the 14th, Starliner's return schedule was pushed back to June 22nd, with the stated reason being to test the capabilities of the spacecraft, thereby preparing for a longer mission in the future. But in my opinion, the real purpose is probably to solve the helium leaks and thruster problems, and now the 3rd delay pushed the return date to the 25th. If it can successfully undock on the 25th, Starliner's return journey will last a day. NASA added, for the primary undocking opportunity, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, the first crew to fly aboard Starliner, would land at about 4:51 a.m. on Wednesday, June 26th at White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico. Delayed decisions will certainly cause disappointment, but after all, the decision was made, and I hope NASA and Boeing can take advantage of this time to completely resolve all problems. Helium and thrusters both play important roles in helping Starliner re-enter, but they also easily encounter problems during this harsh process. Don't forget that Starliner has many other potential risks, like parachutes or electrical wiring. If everything is not secured, the landing will fail. And remember, we have 2 astronauts inside this spacecraft. More than anything, I hope the 2 return safely. Expanding on the Starliner issue, the delay of the return attempt will greatly affect activities on the ISS. As I mentioned earlier, the June 13th spacewalk mission was canceled, and then expected to take place on the 24th. However, this mission now cannot take place earlier than the 25th and the 26th because it depends on the process of undocking Starliner, which NASA considers a high priority. That means only after Starliner undocks successfully can the spacewalk mission proceed, and this is obviously another disappointment that Starliner brings to NASA. Looking further into the future, recent incidents will have a major impact on their first crew mission under the commercial crew program called Starliner 1. Currently, the schedule for this mission is set for early next year, which could be quite close to the Dragon Crew 10 mission. If at that time the station does not have enough ports for both vehicles, NASA may have to choose one of the two missions. We can see Dragon now has a big advantage in both performance and reliability. In contrast, Starliner is suffering from numerous problems. Stitch said,
I think our goal, Mark and mine's goal, is to get the quirks, as you call them, out of the system before we get to the phase where we will be, using this vehicle to rotate up 4 crew members and then bring them back at the end of 6 months.
As Stitch stated, unlike CFT-1, the Starliner 1 mission will last up to 6 months, with 4 astronauts participating. If all the problems cannot be resolved, Starliner's opportunity to reach the ISS in early 2025 will be abandoned, and it may be postponed to around the end of 2025. That'll certainly create a backlog with this spacecraft in the coming years because the ISS's operating time is running out. Do you think Starliner 1 or Dragon Crew 10 will fly first? Please leave your predictions in the comments section down below. After many years, the story of Starliner's delay finally reached a triumphant conclusion with the successful launch of its first astronaut to the ISS. Has everything really changed? Not entirely. Following liftoff, this spacecraft encountered numerous challenges, from the journey to the ISS during its stay there and even as it prepares for its return trip. In recent days, Starship Flight 4 has captured the spotlight in the aerospace industry, overshadowing the attention on Starliner's first crewed flight. However, the issues surrounding Starliner are equally noteworthy. Firstly, we must congratulate NASA, Boeing, and ULA on their success in launching this crewed flight after numerous delays. This achievement marks their initial step into the orbital crew launch market, where their rival, SpaceX's Dragon, is currently dominating. Despite the competition, SpaceX's founder Elon Musk graciously congratulated them, saying, "Congratulations on a successful launch." But despite its significant strides, Starliner still faces numerous challenges. Let's dive in on them. Firstly, you might recall Starliner's 5 delays before its eventual launch. 3 of these incidents involved helium leaks. Despite the potential risks, the decision was made to launch Starliner on the 5th of June. Right after liftoff, 2 more helium leaks occurred, escalating anxiety to its peak. Fortunately, though, the spacecraft continued its journey to the ISS. However, another issue soon arose. 2 reaction control system jets failed, resulting in the malfunction of 5 out of the 28 reaction control system thrusters. This certainly brings back memories of the nerve-wracking December 2019 flight. Back then, the spacecraft prototype, Calypso, failed to rendezvous with the ISS and had to turn back and land on Earth. Fortunately, during this mission, 4 of the 5 malfunctioning thrusters were restored, allowing the spacecraft to reach the ISS. At approximately 1:34 p.m. EDT on June 6th, the connection between Starliner and the ISS was confirmed. But the challenges didn't end there. After arriving at the station, Starliner encountered yet another helium leak. A few days later, just as NASA announced that Starliner would postpone its return schedule to support a spacewalk, a 5th leak appeared on the spacecraft. Besides technical problems, Starliner also faced issues with its mission schedule. According to the initial plan, astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams were to spend a week at the station before returning to Earth. However, that time has passed and Starliner has not yet returned. So, why the delay? As mentioned, NASA announced that the mission would be extended until June 18th so that the 2 astronauts could support the spacewalk mission USEVA-90. Unfortunately, this mission was cancelled because the astronauts experienced discomfort with their suits, disrupting CFT-1's plans and rendering the extension unnecessary. On June 14th, NASA decided to postpone Starliner's return date by 4 days, moving it to June 22nd. The agency stated the extra time allows the team to finalize departure and planning operations while the spacecraft remains cleared for crew emergency return scenarios within the flight rules. Steve Stitch, manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, explained in a mission blog post, We are continuing to understand the capabilities of Starliner to prepare for the long-term goal of having it perform a 6-month docked mission at the space station. As Stitch noted, this preparation is essential for Starliner's future crew missions under NASA's contract, which will last up to 6 months, similar to the ongoing Dragon missions. Various reasons have been provided, but in my opinion, these time extensions are meant to give NASA and Boeing more time to fix the helium leaks and thruster failures. These two systems are crucial for Starliner's return to Earth. Do you think Starliner will return on June 22nd? Please leave a yes or a no in the comment section down below. For now, let's discuss whether Starliner's journey home will be smooth or not. In my opinion, there are many concerns worth addressing here. Firstly, a helium leak poses significant risks. On June 10th, NASA officials wrote in a CFT update, engineers evaluated the helium supply based on current leak rates and determined that Starliner has plenty of margin to support the return trip from the station. Only 7 hours of free flight time is needed to perform a normal end of mission, and Starliner currently has enough helium left in its tanks to support 70 hours of free flight activity following undocking. However, when the 5th leak appeared later, doubts began to surface. Although the amount of confirmed fuel remains substantial, continuous leaks can still be problematic, especially since Starliner will remain docked at the ISS until the 22nd or possibly longer. If the leak is not fixed, it will continue to deplete the necessary amount of helium, and there's no way to predict if more leaks will occur in the remaining days. At the same time, returning also poses risks due to previous issues with Starliner's parachute system. Unlike Dragon, which primarily lands in the ocean, Starliner is designed to land by parachute in the White Sands Missile Range area in New Mexico. Upon landing, it will also have the additional support of an air cushion system to reduce impact. However, Starliner faced several parachute problems last year. It required several months of repairs and wasn't successfully tested until earlier this year. Despite these tests, there is no guarantee that this system won't encounter issues again. And of course, before landing successfully, Starliner will still have to go through a harsh re-entry process. In previous landings, there were no problems with this process, but it still required a lot of attention. But remember that in addition to the parachute problem, last year the Starliner also had problems related to flammable electrical wiring. This problem can completely recur when the spacecraft goes through an extremely harsh re-entry period. This is a crewed mission, and Boeing cannot underestimate any potential risks. More than anything, I really hope the 2 Starliner astronauts will complete their mission and return safely to Earth. I also hope that those who watch this video will leave a like as a way to send their best wishes to the 2 astronauts in their upcoming and important return. Looking ahead, Starliner faces numerous challenges on the horizon. With its successful mission to transport astronauts to the ISS, Starliner has officially entered the space race, competing with its rival SpaceX's Dragon. Both spacecraft received contracts from NASA in 2014. If Starliner completes this mission, it'll achieve official certification to conduct commercial crew missions. However, overcoming Dragon, which currently holds a significant lead, will not be easy due to the substantial gap between the 2 spacecraft. After 10 years, Dragon has successfully completed 9 missions for NASA, excluding private missions, all of which were 100% successful. SpaceX has achieved this milestone through the Commercial Crew Program with 8 missions completed so far, including Crew 8 launched in March, currently docked at the ISS. This track record alone surpasses Starliner, even if Boeing's spacecraft were to complete all its missions. Looking ahead, Dragon has 6 more missions planned, further solidifying its lead over competitors. The next mission, Crew 9, is scheduled for launch in August. Additionally, Dragon is expanding its influence in private missions. In the 3rd quarter, Dragon will launch its first private spacewalk mission, Polaris Dawn, which promises significant breakthroughs such as the SpaceX EVA suit. Success in this mission will further enhance Dragon's dominance. Given its current capabilities, Boeing and Starliner have a long road ahead before they can approach such tasks. Regarding the recent incidents with Starliner, Dragon once again demonstrated its superiority. You might wonder about the connection here. After Starliner encountered problems, many questioned its ability to safely return astronauts to Earth. At that time, a compelling suggestion emerged. NASA should consider SpaceX's Dragon as a potential solution to rescue the two astronauts. In terms of both readiness or availability of Dragons and reliability, Dragon is well equipped for such missions. However, this scenario would likely not sit well with NASA and Boeing, who have invested considerable effort in Starliner's return. Failing to retrieve Starliner could be seen as a significant setback. This situation brings to mind Elon Musk's previous reaction to Starliner delays. The world doesn't need another capsule. What matters is fully reusable rockets and spacecraft. Not only that, but Dream Chaser is also poised to enter this competitive arena. The space plane has demonstrated reliability throughout testing and boasts considerable potential. If Starliner fails to perform adequately, it could face significant competition. Following the CFT-1 mission, Starliner is slated to begin its NASA-assigned missions, starting with Starliner 1 scheduled for early next year. However, ongoing issues with Starliner could potentially lead to delays. With approximately 6 missions planned over the next 5 to 6 years before the retirement of the ISS, the pressure is on for Starliner to deliver. Boeing and NASA have a lot on their plate moving forward, starting with the safe return of their two astronauts. What lies ahead remains to be seen. Next, let's discuss the biggest disappointment in recent days, Starliner, with yet another delay. Yes, the first astronaut mission of Boeing's Starliner capsule has been postponed once again. Starliner will remain docked with the International Space Station until at least July 2nd, about a week later than the previously targeted date of June 26th. The extra time will allow Boeing and NASA to assess several issues that have arisen from the vehicle. Steve Stitch, manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, said in an update on Friday evening, June 21st, "We are taking our time and following our standard mission management team process. We are letting the data drive our decision-making relative to managing the small helium system leaks and thruster performance we observed during rendezvous and docking," he added. The issues are still related to two major problems with the spacecraft: thruster performance and helium leaks. These problems might be more serious than NASA and Boeing initially thought, necessitating additional time for fixes. This is Starliner's fourth delay since arriving at the ISS. The first postponement was announced on June 9th, allowing the astronauts to stay until June 18th to support a spacewalk. The schedule was then pushed to June 22nd and June 26th to address the aforementioned issues. It's unclear if these problems can be resolved by the new deadline, but I have serious doubts about Starliner's return capability. Above all, astronaut safety is paramount. Given the continuous delays, NASA should consider a solution to send Dragon to rescue Starliner's crew. But, as with all things, let's wait and see. Hey folks, that's about it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, this has been Kevin from Great SpaceX. Until next time, keep looking up. The day we witness the catching of the Starship vehicle is so close I can almost feel the whipping winds from that landing burn. While everyone was focused on other activities at Starbase, SpaceX made an insane leap forward with the unexpected object B14.1. This shows their huge determination to catch Super Heavy right in Flight 5, dispelling many doubts. Moreover, the Super Heavy catching attempt in Flight 5 seems even more certain with the recent launch license reveal. Around late May and early June, everyone's attention was fixated on Flight 4. However, during that time, a piece of Starship hardware called B14.1 was quietly moved to the Massey test site. Then, a few days ago, a 4-hour road closure for booster transport was scheduled for June 21st. At first, I didn't think this update would be a major step either. But then, everything surprisingly changed. B14.1 is now set to play a crucial role in the coming days. As planned, B14.1 was moved from the Massey test site straight to the launch site. So, what mission will B14.1 undertake? It's extremely important. because B14.1 will be the prototype used to test the Mechazilla arm's catching capabilities in Flight 5. Currently, 14.1 has not yet been lifted. Luckily, Ryan Hansen has created some great images for us to visualize the testing process. I want to give a huge shout out to the Ryan Hansen team for their fantastic images. Big thanks to them, because with those images, they help everyone better understand the upcoming testing process. So I hope those who have watched this video or have seen Ryan Hansen's images elsewhere will follow their X page and subscribe to their YouTube channel to motivate them to create more masterpieces in the future. Alright, back to our topic. Through Ryan Hansen's videos, we can understand the upcoming test as follows. B14.1 will be lifted by a crane, most likely the LR-11 000 to a height above the chopstick's position. Meanwhile, the chopstick will be raised to the same position it will occupy during Flight 5. Once everything is set, the crane will drop B14.1 at maximum speed. This drop from a fair distance will simulate the fall of a future Super Heavy in landing status, with the Raptor engines providing just enough thrust to decelerate, navigate, and land. During this process, the landing rails will be raised. These rails are designed to directly contact the attachment points on the booster when the chopstick closes. After catching the booster, the rails will lower. In the simulated video, this process appears quite slow, but in reality, it'll happen much faster. This test will allow SpaceX to verify the effectiveness of the 4 dampeners below the landing rails on the 2 arms in slowing down the booster's descent speed. To increase the test's effectiveness, SpaceX might add water to B14.1 to create additional mass. After completing these operations, B14.1 will likely be adjusted by the actuators on the chopstick. The chopstick will then lower, rotate, and place B14.1 on top of the OLM, or Orbital Launch Mount. I believe this step will happen because the scaffolding used for repairing the OLM was recently removed. Those could be the procedures for the upcoming catch test if everything goes smoothly, giving us more confidence in the method of catching Super Heavy with the Mechazilla arm in Flight 5. That flight is also approaching fast, possibly at the end of July, so get ready to enjoy the next feats of SpaceX. By the way, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe to our channel to motivate us to continue updating you on this interesting test as soon as possible. The preparations are extremely impressive and show SpaceX's great determination. To further ensure the goal of catching Super Heavy with the Mechazilla arm in the next flight, SpaceX has just made an important step related to launch license procedures. Specifically, the images on the FCC page show that SpaceX has submitted information for the upcoming flight. In the Purpose of Operations section, we can see important details. Launch vehicle communications for test flight mission launching from Starbase, Texas. The first stage booster will either return to the launch site or perform a controlled water landing. Indeed, SpaceX proposed the possibility of the Super Heavy returning to Starbase. This is an important addition because the previous license did not include this. When SpaceX wants to launch a new mission, it needs to update its license. This is proof that Flight 5 will be the time catching by the Mechazilla arm is applied. Meanwhile, SpaceX still offers the option of performing a controlled water landing, similar to the Flight 4 attempt. However, I hope the next flight will use the new landing method. After completing procedures with the FCC, SpaceX will still need to work with the FAA. Currently, mishap investigations are not being conducted, and SpaceX will soon submit the launch license modification. Once the FAA approves these requests, it'll be time to prepare everything and wait for the next miracle of the aerospace industry. Besides the great mission updates, some other FCC documents have appeared, revealing a lot about the prospects for Flight 5 and subsequent flights. One of the notices said, the legacy radio system used on Starship, or SHIP, through Flight 4 has reached the end of life. Flights 5 and 6 feature a temporary system utilizing the same radios, radio controllers as they're also known as the Super Heavy booster, or booster, currently does. With this update, we can understand that in the next 2 flights, Starship's communication systems will be similar to previous flights. For the ship, they will likely be S-30 and S-31, and for Super Heavy, they will be B-12 and B-13. The report states the Flight 5 and 6 RF system for SHIP consists of 2 radio controllers, one on each side of the vehicle. Each radio controller supports 2 independent transmit chains, meaning there are a total of 4 transmit chains on the vehicle. To support 2 omnidirectional telemetry streams as we do on the booster, we are requesting 4 independent frequencies for ship. Indeed, these updates will give us fantastic views for the upcoming flight. We'll witness the ship's impressive re-entry process and, most excitingly, the incredible sight of boosters and ships landing on the Mechazilla arm. Another report on using Starlink during Starship flights clarified, SpaceX intends to demonstrate high data rates communications with the Starship spacecraft and the Super Heavy booster on the ground at the launch site in Starbase, Texas, during launch, in-flight operations, booster recovery, and spacecraft entry. And the Starship Super Heavy test flight will originate from Starbase, Texas. The booster stage will separate and then perform a return and land in the Gulf of Mexico or at Starbase, Texas. The future looks even more promising. The first report added, this is a temporary request for the RF system on Flights 5 and 6. Flight 7 will be a further evolution of the RF system on ship. With this update, we can consider 2 possibilities. The first is that SpaceX will change the communication system on S-32. The prototype still planned for Flight 7. The second possibility is that SpaceX will use a new Starship version, perhaps V2, which Musk revealed will appear this year, leading to a change in the communication system. With this option, S-32 might not fly, and SpaceX could switch to the new version sooner than expected. What prospect do you think is likely to happen? Let me know by commenting number 1 if you think the S-32 will still fly on Flight 7, or number 2, if you think this flight will debut Starship version 2. Starship's crazy development is turning many things we only dreamed of before into reality. I believe many of you, like me, have dreamed of Starship flying and landing in the holy land of the aerospace industry, Florida. And I'm here to tell you that soon this won't be a dream anymore. SpaceX and the FAA have created clear scenarios for this, featuring many elements we've never even thought about. So what other crazy milestones is Starship leading us to? Did you know Starship set its footprint in Florida long ago with a launch system at LC-39A, where SpaceX currently launches the Falcon 9. But in 2024, everything seemed to become clearer as agencies begin evaluating the environmental impact statement for operating Starship and Super Heavy in Florida. After considering and comparing other potential options like SLC-50, LC-39A remained the choice of the FAA and SpaceX. Once everything was determined by May, the EIS preparation process began. After 45 days of public scoping, the FAA just released the draft EIS. It can be said that with just this draft, we can imagine the future of Starship. This notice clearly shows the roadmap for completing the EIS, the new design of Starship, the roles of organizations, and the issues that need to be resolved by SpaceX. Starship's design is something we've talked about before, but this statement has also other important plans. Proposed action for Starship's operation. Specifically, in the Proposed Action section, the FAA clearly states SpaceX proposes to construct launch, landing, and other associated infrastructure at and in proximity to LC-39A. The proposal also includes Starship Super Heavy launches at LC-39A, recoverable Super Heavy booster and Starship landings at LC-39A or on a drone ship, and expendable Super Heavy booster and Starship landings in the ocean. Perhaps, maybe you, like me, were immediately interested in one of these, right? And of course, it was landing Starship and Super Heavy on the drone ship that perked your ears. Speaking of drone ships, we definitely think of the Falcon 9. After many years of application, SpaceX conducted about 260 attempts with this method. Combined with the landing zone, this method has helped SpaceX consistently create rocket landings and reuse records, which sets them apart from the rest. And now, it'll be applied to Starship. May I remind you, it's Starship, the world's largest rocket, and it'll be landed on a drone ship in the ocean in the future. Like Falcon rockets, Starship will fly up, and then the booster will separate from the ship. With the Falcon 9, its booster often lands on the drone ship in about 8.5 minutes. With Starship, that may take a little longer at around 10 minutes or more. After separating from the ship, Super Heavy will use engines and grid fins to navigate and decelerate. Finally, it'll then have a vertical landing on the drone ship. Those would be the similarities between Starship and Falcon 9 when using this method, but Starship is designed to be fully reused, so the story afterward will be the new milestones that Starship will write for the first time. And after a long journey, perhaps just in orbit or further to the moon or Mars, the ship will return, go through the re-entry process, and then land on the drone ship as its companion. This will clearly be a new milestone, more impressive than any previous feat in the aerospace industry. The option of landing on a drone ship for Starship has great potential with many advantages. Firstly, it'll increase flexibility because the drone ship can move anywhere to pick up Super Heavy and the ship, thereby reducing the complexity of the two-stage control process. Secondly, landing on a drone ship in the ocean will help avoid risks to humans and property much more than land-based methods. But if this method is applied, there will be a few changes that need to be made. The first, I think you're all very interested in, as soon as I talk about this method, is the landing leg. You're probably wondering, what landing legs? Well, current starships don't have landing legs, and that's not suitable for this landing method either way. Previously, Starship did have legs, but they were eventually removed to reduce mass and were more suitable for the launch tower and OLM system. Frankly, I'm a big fan of landing legs, so I've always thought adding landing legs was clearly necessary, not only for landing on a drone ship, but also for landing on the moon or Mars. So, are landing legs gonna make a comeback? Or will the drone ship have a new design to match the legless Starship? Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Anyways, with the drone ship, many changes are currently uncertain, but I believe it must greatly increase its basic capabilities, including durability and size. Unlike the Falcon booster, which only has a maximum thrust of 770 tons or 1.7 million pounds, the EIS has clearly shown that the future Super Heavy has a thrust of more than 10,000 tons or 23 million pounds. While the ship is more than 2,800 tons or nearly 6.3 million pounds. Of course, that is the maximum thrust when lifting off. When landing, the Falcon booster, Super Heavy, and ship will only use a few engines, so the thrust will be much smaller. But the aforementioned comparison still partly shows the difference between Starship stages and the Falcon booster. Thus, this will require the drone ship to be larger and more durable than current ones, in order to withstand the huge thrust and dry mass of up to hundreds of tons from 150-meter-high rockets. Don't forget that SpaceX will be conducting a lot of launches each year, so the drone ships also have to be capable of handling the craziest of frequencies. Despite the challenges, the prospect of landing Starship on a drone ship is incredibly exciting. It's a potential game changer for space travel logistics. We'll just have to wait and see if this method is ultimately chosen, but the possibilities are thrilling, so stay tuned. But hey, landing on a drone is not the only thrilling option. SpaceX and the FAA have revealed additional methods. The FAA has specified that both the Super Heavy booster and the Starship can touch down at LC-39A, the same pad from which they were launched. This involves the incredible Mechazilla arm catching them mid-air. SpaceX is chasing this ambitious goal and will take the first step with the upcoming Flight 5. I believe the launch and landing process with the Mechazilla arm in Florida will mirror what they're doing in Texas, or should I say what they're attempting to do. After a few minutes of flight, the booster will separate from the ship, navigate back to the launch complex, and land on the tower. Or in the tower? The ship's journey will be longer. As detailed in the drone ship section, after completing its mission, the ship will re-enter the atmosphere and land using the tower, just like its booster companion. Regarding the infrastructure supporting this initiative, the FAA highlighted key elements in their background statement. On the map, we can identify NASA-approved zones, such as the Air Separation Unit Area, Deluge Pond, and facilities dedicated to propellant generation and storage. However, the standout feature is undoubtedly the Catch Tower. This revelation indicates that SpaceX will have at least 2 towers at LC-39A, each serving distinct purposes, one for launching and the other catching. Incredible, isn't it? With this approach, SpaceX can continue to employ the current landing design without landing legs. This method offers the advantage of expediting repairs and refurbishments, thus reducing turnaround time. Not only is this visually impressive, but it also sets SpaceX apart, as no other organization has achieved this feat. But in return, SpaceX will need to master this method thoroughly. Landing with a Mechazilla arm demands utmost precision and entails significant risks to surrounding infrastructure. LC-39A hosts the Falcon 9 launch pad, a critical asset for NASA, underscoring the importance of flawless execution. Nevertheless, landing with the Mechazilla arm promises to captivate the world's attention. The journey will likely begin with Flight 5, anticipated to occur late next month. After discussing the 2 methods mentioned earlier, the FAA also presented another option termed expendable, meaning that the Super Heavy and ship would not be reused and would instead be landed in the Atlantic Ocean. The FAA's statement included mapped regions with specific distances and latitudes for these landings. However, this method is certainly not ideal. Rather, it serves as a contingency plan for exceptional circumstances. For now, I'd like to ask you, which method do you prefer for Starship? Droneship or Mechazilla arm? Feel free to share your choice in the comment section down below. I'll be eagerly awaiting your response. Regardless of the chosen method, however, SpaceX faces several tasks ahead. Bringing the giant rocket to Florida involves collaborating closely with the FAA and numerous other organizations to finalize the EIS. Following the draft, they'll gather public comments, make necessary modifications, finalize the official EIS, and move towards making critical decisions. They also need to master the landing soon. The next challenge will be Flight 5, which will pave the way for catching the Super Heavy with the Mechazilla arm. Only after achieving this milestone will SpaceX consider applying it in Florida or transitioning to drone ship landings. It's a rough road ahead, but nothing is impossible. So let's share our eagerness and await the outcome. It's here, the new armor of S-30. Oops, I mean the heat shield system with up to 18,000 tiles on S-30. SpaceX has been making radical changes to the system over the past few days, promising significant advancements for the upcoming flight. Flight 4 concluded just about 2 weeks ago, and true to form, preparations for the next flight are already underway. Following issues with the heat shield system during the June 6th flight, Elon Musk unveiled some groundbreaking changes to the system. For instance, there are plans to introduce a new heat shield that will be twice as powerful as the existing tiles, along with using an ablative layer for additional protection. These upgrades are impressive, and remarkably, we won't have to wait long to see them in action. They are slated to be implemented immediately on the next prototype flight, the S-30. Specifically, on the 11th of June, just 5 days after Flight 4, the process of removing the heat shield from S-30 began. Images from Starship Gazer show that this work encompassed the entire ship, including the nose cone, body, and flap. I want to extend a big thanks to Starship Gazer for providing these excellent images of the heat shield change. If you're watching this video, consider giving their team a follow on X and subscribing to their YouTube channel to encourage them to capture more amazing images in the future. Returning to the heat shield removal process, it's remarkable that within just a few days, this task appears to have been completed. By around June 14th, which was only about 3 days after work began, approximately 2/3 of the heat shields had been removed. In images taken on June 17th, we can see that S-30 no longer has any heat shields. Instead, the stainless steel and attachment pins are now exposed. This rapid pace of work is truly impressive, especially considering that each ship can have up to 18,000 heat shields. It underscores the high expectations SpaceX has for the Flight 5 prototype and demonstrates the efficiency and dedication of their workforce. In addition, we can observe the ablative layer that Elon Musk mentioned. It appears as a white cushion-like layer located directly beneath beneath the tiles. This layer is also segmented into hexagon-like tiles, most prominently visible on the nose cone. The reason for this segmentation likely stems from the nose cone's heat shield being adhered with glue, unlike the rest of the ship, which uses the pin attachment method. Once the removal process is complete, SpaceX is expected to proceed with adding a full ablative layer to S30. It remains uncertain whether this layer will be installed throughout the entire ship or only in the most sensitive areas. Personally, I hope SpaceX opts for full coverage across all ships to ensure absolute safety. Following the ablative layer installation, new heat shields will be introduced. I'm particularly curious about the design of these new heat shields, touted to be twice as strong. Will they be thicker, or will there be a change in materials? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. If work proceeds smoothly, I anticipate everything will be completed within 2 weeks, preparing S30 for testing early next month. Recently, Elon Musk responded to a tweet about Mechazilla catching Starship by stating they aim to attempt this in late July. With approximately a month remaining until then, preparations need to be swiftly completed, including the replacement of the heat shield on S30. Following this work, S30 will undergo another wet dress rehearsal test with Booster 12, or B12 for short. Additionally, I anticipate another static fire test to verify the reliability of the new tiles, possibly at the flame trench system at the Massey test site. Meanwhile, B12 will also undergo its preparations, including conducting its own static fire and awaiting the full stacking of S30 for the wet dress rehearsal. I'm also eager to witness the debut of the booster's new hot staging ring soon. The journey to Flight 5 promises to be exceptionally thrilling. Please like, share, and subscribe to this video to support us through the upcoming period. How do you beat Starship? That's probably the question every SpaceX Starship competitor is asking right now. With its current capabilities, this giant rocket surpasses all others in size and thrust. But hold on, because things are about to get even crazier. A new upgrade for this monster has emerged, and it's beyond anything we could ever imagine. So, how will the new version of Starship be different? How will it impact the related systems? Last year, after Flight 2, Elon Musk announced that the current Starship prototypes were the last of V1. Since then, many details about new Starship designs have emerged. However, everything became clearer during Elon Musk's April presentation at Starbase. In that presentation, we saw the statistics of a previously unmentioned version, the Starship V3. This version features significant changes: 6 engines on the ship, a liftoff thrust of up to 10,000 tons, a height of 150 meters, new hot staging, and more. The future of space exploration just got even more thrilling. Recently, in the FAA's Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, the agency highlighted Starship's new design planned for future use in Florida. In a fully integrated state, Starship may reach a height of 492 feet, or 150 meters, and a diameter of approximately 30 feet, or 9 meters. Yes, at this size, we can immediately recognize this as the V3 version, previously mentioned by Musk. The statement also revealed a major upgrade. The Super Heavy booster will have 35 Raptor engines instead of the current 33. So how will SpaceX implement these changes? According to recent models created by the Space Engineer, 2 new engines will be added to the inner gimbal ring, increasing the count from 3 to 5 engines. A big thanks to the Space Engineer team for their great efforts in creating these amazing images, which help everyone easily visualize the changes in Super Heavy. Regarding the new changes, I believe the addition of engines to the inner gimbal ring will enhance navigation and deceleration during the landing process. During the recent flight, 3 inner engines and 10 middle engines worked effectively, helping Super Heavy decelerate from over 1,200 km per hour to 9 per hour in less than 20 seconds. However, this is still not sufficient to land with the Mechazilla arm. Therefore, upgrading and adding more engines will help solve this problem and ensure a safer landing. Besides increasing efficiency, the addition of 2 engines to the inner ring also aims to enhance reliability. In another image by the Space Engineer, the team provided an interesting analysis. The 5 inner engines will be divided into 2 groups, 1 group of 3 engines and 1 group of 2. The engines in each group will be placed symmetrically to maintain balance. By dividing into 2 groups, SpaceX can focus to the other group if one group encounters problems, helping the landing process to continue smoothly and reducing dependence on just 3 engines as it is now. For instance, in Flight 3, one of the 3 inner engines on B-10 failed, leading to an unsuccessful landing. This new configuration could prevent such issues and ensure more reliable landings. Of course, increasing the number of engines will also boost overall thrust. According to the FAA's statement, the liftoff thrust of the new version will reach 103 meganewtons, which is equivalent to 10,503 tons or more than 23 million pounds. Incredible, right? With just over 7,500 tons of thrust in its current version, Starship is already more powerful than any rocket in history. This upgrade will extend that superiority even further. In fact, this upgrade also showcases SpaceX's genius in opting for the design of many small and simple engines instead of a few large ones. Instead of spending time improving individual engines, SpaceX simply adjusted the prototype design to increase the number of engines, significantly boosting the rocket's power. This approach demonstrates their innovative thinking and commitment to pushing the boundaries of space technology. The increase in the number of engines isn't limited to Super Heavy. It also applies to the ship. Unlike the Super Heavy, this change on the ship has been mentioned before. The number of engines will increase from 6 to 9, with additional 3 vacuum engines. This enhancement will strengthen the ship's journey after separating from the Super Heavy, allowing it to expand the boundaries of exploration more easily. 28 meganewtons, equivalent to 2,855 tons or approximately 6.3 million pounds. As the number of engines and thrust increase, the propellant capacity will also rise. According to Elon Musk's presentation, the fuel volume of Super Heavy and Ship version 3 will be 4,050 tons and 2,300 tons, respectively. However, the FAA's statement gives even more impressive numbers. The propellant capacity on Super Heavy is expected to reach up to 4,100 metric tons, and on the ship, up to 2,600 metric tons. This means the fuel tanks of the 2 stages will be significantly larger. In the current version, the booster holds 3,400 tons of fuel and the ship holds 1,200. As I mentioned, V3 will be up to 150 meters tall, nearly 30 meters taller than the current version. Super Heavy will increase from 71 meters to 80.2 meters, and the ship will grow from 50.3 to 69.8 meters. This added height will help the fuel tanks accommodate the increased fuel capacity. Now, let's look at another interesting change in the new version of Starship. Using the current Raptor 2 engines, which provide 230 tons of thrust at sea level and 258 tons in a vacuum, even with 35 engines in Super Heavy and 9 engines in Ship, the thrust would only reach 8,050 tons and 2,238 tons, respectively. This falls short of the 10,000 and 2,855 tons of thrust we've discussed. This also suggests that the new version not only increases the number of engines, but also upgrades the engine type, likely to Raptor 3. The Raptor 3 engine is expected to provide 280 tons of thrust at sea level and 306 tons in a vacuum. When we multiply these thrusts by the new engine quantities, the results align closely with the previously mentioned thrust parameters, confirming the significant performance boost in the new Starship version. Besides the interior changes, the exterior designs are also highly anticipated, including hot staging and flaps. These systems will be adopted from Starship version 2, but after Flight 4, they received even more attention. The hot staging ring will be simplified to be lighter and more efficient, allowing it to accompany Starship and be reused instead of being jettisoned. The flap will be raised towards the nose cone, and after the recent incident, SpaceX plans to push it towards the ship's leeward side. These upgrades will enhance navigation and landing efficiency while keeping the flap safe during re-entry. Are you in love with this design? If so, please leave a like, comment yes to let me know, and also, you can make predictions about the release time of this version in the comment section down below. These changes not only affect hardware performance and capabilities, but also impact many related systems. Firstly, let's talk about the production system. With increasing numbers and upgraded engines, SpaceX needs to change its current production model. The Raptor production rate is currently confirmed at up to 1 engine per day, but that may not be enough for future demand. This is where the role of Star Factory comes in. The advantage of Raptor 3 is in its simpler design, which makes the production pace faster and suitable for mass production. Star Factory is reaching the final stages of construction and is expected to be operational this summer, promising to create spectacular changes. Additionally, more assembly bays need to be built, as the 3 existing structures will not be enough enough to meet the huge demand. Testing systems will also need to be expanded to accommodate the increased production. One of the systems receiving the greatest attention with the new version of Starship is the launch tower. With the increased height of a new Starship, the launch tower will need to be taller than the current one, ensuring a safer stage catching process. The launch tower, orbital launch mount, protection system, and water deluge system all require upgrades to withstand the enormous thrust of the new Starship. This is crucial considering the issues these systems encountered after just 3 Starship flights, which do not align with SpaceX's long-term use goals. According to the FAA's statement, the new tower system will be built in Florida, but it could also be implemented in Texas. The tank farm will also need an upgrade. It must be designed for enhanced safety and increased efficiency, particularly in fuel loading speed. Currently, SpaceX takes 40 to 50 minutes to load more than 10 million pounds or 4,600 tons of fuel. With the new capacity increasing to more than 14.7 million pounds or 6,700 tons, SpaceX will aim to avoid lengthening the fuel loading process and might even seek to shorten it. Many scenarios have been proposed for when these new upgrades will appear. With just a few reveals, we've created numerous perspectives. When the new version of Starship comes into operation, it will undoubtedly have an even more significant impact. Space exploration will change dramatically, but one thing will remain constant. Starship will still be the flagship in this race. Well, basically, that'll also be the day that SpaceX Falcon Heavy launches. The Falcon Heavy's first mission is scheduled for the 25th of June. The launch is planned at 5:16 p.m. EDT that day at Kennedy Space Center's LC-39A. This mission is for NASA and NOAA's GOES-U spacecraft. GOES-U, which will become GOES-19 once in orbit, will replace GOES-16, which makes up the eastern region of the GOES network. These weather satellites are the most advanced currently operated by NOAA and sit out in geostationary orbit overseeing the continental US, South America, and the western coast of Africa. This satellite is extremely important not just for traditional weather monitoring, search and rescue, and tracking natural disasters, but also for hurricane season. Being able to focus on the Gulf of Mexico and see hurricane-forming systems begin in Africa gives meteorologists ample data to track and alert the public about incoming storms. An interesting detail related to this mission, it marks the first time a NOAA satellite will be transported to space using a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. For the mission's previous 3 satellite launches, NOAA chose the United Launch Alliance's Atlas V 541 rocket to transport the modules to their positions in orbit. So, why is this launch happening on Falcon Heavy? In fact, this is another victory for SpaceX over its competitors. Explaining this, Rex Engelhardt, GOES-U mission manager for NASA's Launch Services program, revealed, "The different rocket companies join and sign up with the contract and give us NTE prices," in which NTE stands for not to exceed. When we're trying to procure a rocket for a particular mission, we do a mini competition where we give them an opportunity to lower those prices, come down off the not to exceed, and bid to the mission-specific requirements. In this case, Falcon Heavy won that. Indeed, even with fewer launches compared to Falcon 9, SpaceX's Falcon Heavy still demonstrates immense potential. Looking ahead to the upcoming mission, after deploying the payload, the 2 boosters used by SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket are planned to return to LZ-1 and LZ-2 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. This launch will mark SpaceX's first Falcon Heavy mission of 2024 and the 10th overall for this powerful rocket. It's been over 6 months since the last Falcon Heavy launch, and for the remainder of the year, only a few are scheduled. NASA's Europa Clipper is set to launch in October, and in November, Astrobotic's Griffin lander will use a Falcon Heavy to journey to the moon. So far this year, SpaceX has completed more than 60 missions, with only 2 of them being Starship missions and the rest being Falcon 9 launches. Falcon Heavy has been inactive in the first half of the year due to technical issues, but this upcoming flight signals its return to operations. Hopefully, this mission will be successful, paving the way for Falcon Heavy to play a more active role for the rest of the year with several critical missions. Let's leave a like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel in order to send our best Wishes for Falcon Heavy's success. Turning to the east, China, currently the US's primary competitor in space exploration, has recently made significant preparations for the moon race. On June 14th, China's primary space contractor conducted a successful static fire test of a rocket's first stage intended for lunar missions. The China Academy of Launch Vehicle Technology, or CALT, announced through its WeChat channel a Long March 10 first stage test article was fired in Fengtai district of Beijing Friday, June 14th. The stage started normally, operated steadily, and shut down on schedule. The test article featured 3 YF-100K kerosene liquid oxygen engines and had a diameter of 5 meters. The full Long March 10 first stage is planned to be powered by 7 such engines, with 2 additional similar stages attached to its center stage. A second first stage power system test will be conducted in the near future to further verify additional operational conditions. This successful test marks a significant advancement towards China's goal of sending astronauts to the moon before 2030. In comparison, NASA aims to achieve this milestone with Artemis 3, slated no earlier than 2026. The Long March 10 rocket comprises 3 stages, measuring a total length of 92.5 meters. Its first stage utilizes 3 cores, with a takeoff mass of 2,189 tons and a thrust of approximately 2,678 tons. Designed to transport payloads of at least 27 tons to Earth-Moon transfer orbit, 2 Long March 10 rockets are planned for missions carrying spacecraft and landers to the moon. As a direct competitor to NASA's Space Launch System, or SLS, and SpaceX's Starship Human Landing System, HLS, the Long March 10 positions China prominently in the future lunar exploration race. With this development, anticipation grows for new advancements from SpaceX and NASA, especially as the Artemis mission draws closer. Well, folks, that's about it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, this has been Kevin from Great SpaceX. Until next time, keep looking up.